Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Climb. Today, we're going to be talking about the pillars of agency growth. But before I get into that, this podcast is brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. That's essentially where digital agencies, marketing, and technologists come together to share tips, tricks, tools, mentorship. It's also a peer group. We have bi-weekly calls. Today we're having one where we're going to be talking about sales prospecting, list building. It's going to be super juicy. So if you get a chance, shoot me an email. Hurry up. We can maybe do a call to get you on. You're not going to want to miss that one. It's going to be really gnarly. We also have yearly meetings. We get together once a year. This year was postponed by COVID. Next year, we're still gathering some speakers, but it's going to be in Dallas, Texas. So if you want to grow your agency, shoot me an email, John, Jon, at digitalmastermind.com. Check us out at digitalmastermind.com. And feel free to tune in or chime into the show with any questions or comments that you have. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Dave, why don't you come out here? Our production woes on a Wednesday.
Tough. Back in the office. Got to get used to a whole new setup.
I know. You got that's true. You don't have the map in the background. Got back in the saddle, though. It's good.
Yep. All
right. So today, and the reason I wanted to talk about the pillars of agency growth, I was getting a bunch of questions based on some people based on the award we got saying like, okay, well, hey, what does it take, to do that? And I did some thinking. I was like, all right, well, what are some of the foundational pieces that we put together? And I think number one is a mix between core values, culture, and process, right? So, Dave, you're familiar with our core values, CREED. What are they?
CREED: clarity, responsiveness, efficiency, excellence, and detail. And
you can recite them. That's important.
Somebody really smart actually helped us put these together.
Who would that be?
That'd be a Revital Agency. So yeah, John back in the day helped us put this together. I love it, and they work, and they do fit with everything that we strive for. I mean, we're clarity and responsiveness are some of the two biggest for what we do, because working with IT is sometimes a pain in the ass, and people are trying to obfuscate technical terms and talk over people. Being clear and being able to respond to somebody quickly, like there's nothing worse than a customer calling in and nobody gets back to them for 4 hours, 8 hours the next day. I mean, that's just
deplorable.
Yeah. That's so,
I think one of the things that I love about core values that's near and dear is it's the DNA of a company, right? But it also, other than it being like the fabric in the soul, it works as a filter. Because if you have people on your team that do not fit into any of those core values, don't meet them, it's an easy disqualifier. Like, okay, well, we don't want this person on our team. And the same goes for working with clients. If they're continually assaulting your core values, it's easy to filter them out. Like, okay, well, they obviously don't align with us. So I think we just need to part company and move on.
100%. I mean, getting rid of toxic clients, just like toxic people. You got to get them out of your life because they'll destroy morale on your team. They'll make your team members want to leave. We've had projects that have had people leave the company because they were tired of working with that client. So, I mean, that's
speaking of Revital, I think we had one of those. Yeah. Not going to name the company, but yeah, we ended up getting rid of them as well. Yeah. But yeah, you got to cut the dead branches if you want the tree to grow. But core values being that foundational piece that brings everybody together, and it's an understanding between all of your team members of, hey, this is who we are, and it also helps establish that layer of culture, right? So it's that agreement. Also, one of the things that I recommend is using your core values wherever you can, working those into your pep talks, your speeches, your kickoff meetings, where your team members are using them back and forth to communicate. The other thing that's super important is understanding the purpose of your agency and getting down into some of the weeds. You can understand the purpose of why the people are on your team, having all of those things align. And when you have the alignment of, all right, this is our agency's purpose, these are the individual purposes of our teammates, magical things can happen. And the most magical thing that happens is less friction, where you create seamless, smooth operations and performance. And that's something that everybody should continually strive for.
Yeah, the grinding gears of getting shit done is the morale killer, the spirit crusher.
Spirit crusher.
I mean, it'll. I mean, I love waking up in the morning and going to work. That's because things are working. When they don't work, you dread it. You're like, oh God, I got to go back into there today. I mean, so yeah, the right people, right processes. That's key.
Great. Let's bring up point number 2 for the other pillar of growth: having a solid value proposition and target market. Right. I look at these two things as being highly correlated because your value proposition should speak to your target market and it should also speak to what value you're going to offer them. And when you know who you're going to go after, what you offer, who it is that you're going after, things become that much simpler, right? I know a lot of agencies based on like that HubSpot model, and this was a few years ago, speaking with them, we're just, we just depend on our SEO and our SEO is not working anymore. I think the irony of that is the inbound model that was proliferated from HubSpot was they were like amazing at outbound. It's like, wow, could you have anything that's more fucking ironic than that? But so in that's a conversation like, okay, you need to have an outbound model. We've spoke with this, multiple guests. Jeff Wilson had some great comments on there about, creating events, but outbound is something that I think, especially right now, within the times that we're in, every agency needs to embrace. And having something to sell, going back to that value proposition, having something to sell that is so compelling to your target market that you're not concerned with cold calling. I think that's also important. Realizing that we are so good at what we do, this is what we offer, that you're not afraid to pick up the phone because cold calling is not dead. You can still get people's phone numbers, right? And they still answer. You can still leave voicemail, so there's that exposure as well. And whether you want to buy a list on LinkedIn, hire a third party, just make sure you have some actions that are occurring on the outbound level, whether they're at your community building, it could be a podcast that you're outreaching, whatever it is. Make sure that you have the actions that are moving in that direction. Don't just rely on your referrals and your SEO traffic because one day those just may dry up. Be aggressive.
So speaking of data, why don't you give everyone a quick little preview of what the DMG call is going to be about?
Yeah, so today we're having a call with Zoom Info, and they're going to discuss how, if you're an agency, how to go about building lists and targeting people with their data. So really excited about that. We're going to, in the way that our calls work, we are going to do a deep dive with the company. We've done this with a few other companies. And then after that, we talk amongst ourselves. So that company leaves, and we literally have a forum where after all their questions are answered, we get to essentially, talk about it, without them in the room, which creates a whole new platform. And you're going to hear things that weren't shared, of course, because the elephant's no longer in the room.
Yeah, super excited about that call coming up. But on the topic, I mean, I'm not the sales guy of this power dynamic duo here. So, those sales things, like that has been what's, powered our growth. Adding that sales fuel and your drive on knowing how to sell it and where to go after. I mean, we just before focused just trying to do a good job and hope our customers refer us business. And because I didn't have that sales drive to get out there, and that's why we weren't growing at a super fast, or at least an accelerated rate for our first 8 years.
A forced multiplier.
A force multiplier. Bingo bango.
Touche. But I think it's so to finish that, I mean, just not talking in circles, but I just want to sum it up again. Having a solid value proposition, your target market, and go prospect. Just do it. And go to networking meetings. I'm talking with too many people right now that just don't have a plan in place. And if you don't have a plan in place, grab an action and just do that action. Just go into LinkedIn, go into Google Maps, find a company that you want to go after, hound them in the most positive way that you can hound someone and create some momentum. Which leads me to point number 2. Have a smooth sales process. So once you get that prospect, that referral or whoever is going to be coming in your door, it's paramount that you don't mess it up, right? Now, granted, you're going to fail and you're going to make mistakes. Of course, you're not going to close every deal. That's the reality of the situation. But have a smooth sales process. And what I mean by that is be honest. So if it's a deal that's not going to work, let them go. Give them to somebody else, because all that's going to do is create some of that toxic energy that Dave and I were talking about earlier. And a phrase that I like to use is, are we bringing shit in the house? Nobody wants that in their house. So don't take the projects that are doomed to fail. Don't take the ones where you think something magical is going to happen with a budget, because if they don't have the money to spend based on their goals and those two things are out of alignment, it's not going to work. So, all right. So don't prospect yourself into a nasty corner with people that you're not going to work with. All right. Didn't mean to start on a negative. All right. Smooth sales process. Let's get into that. So schedule meetings, right? So what I mean by that is you have your first meeting, but don't be afraid to have 2 or 3 or a drawn out sales process, as long as you're thorough in the way that you're quoting, right? And the way that you do that is you continually set the expectation for the prospect or your customer. They need to know where they're going and where you're taking them. There are no surprises. The only surprises that people like are diamond rings and big checks of money, right? They don't want to be shocked, especially in the sales process, because you're starting to set, the tone of what this relationship is going to be like. So explain your sales process. Also, talk about pricing and the budget upfront. I've said this before. We've had other guests say this, but it's really important. They need to understand that you're a business. This isn't your hobby. You're not just doing this for fun. And they need to understand, like, okay, these are the types of projects that we work with. So get them comfortable talking about pricing with you, and get an idea of what you want to accomplish. You may be able to do this on the first call, right? You might have to take all this information and get it on the second call, right? We spread ours out typically between 3 calls. And I could give a quick breakdown. First call, we just want to get an understanding if this person is going to be a fit, and it's a little bit of a fact finding, right? Number 2, during that, we're going to take the facts that we learned, we're going to pull in more team members, and we're going to have a very thorough deep dive with them, showing them, hey, this is what our team looks like. This is how interested we are in you, and these are the stages that we go through. And then on that third call, we're going to talk about pricing. In no way or no form are we going to let them know what it's going to cost without getting really understanding the details. We might ballpark some things, but we're not going to just blind send them over a proposal, because that's useless. That's not a smooth process. That's a shitty process. And all that's going to do is send it over where you don't control the presentation. So you want to control the presentation as much as you can during the sales process. And to do that, at the end, in that last meeting when you're going to talk about prices, be clear and transparent. Create an outline so they understand how you got to your price. If you don't do that, it's a gamble. You can do the 3 packages, which some people have had wonderful results on that, and God bless them. I think that's great. I prefer, and this is the way that I like to buy, is, okay, well, how did you come to that price? What is the hosting going to cost? How many hours are in the design? How many hours in the marketing development? Show me what it takes to get there, and we'll have a better relationship.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought you were going to take us to the point where we can talk about the new sales questionnaire that we're putting together.
That's what my co-host is supposed to bring in. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
All right. So walk us through. What's the value?
All right. So I got to make my screen a little bit bigger here. So, all right. So essentially, this is a sales questionnaire that we'll share to our audience that we developed in making sure that our team understands what it is that we're trying to accomplish. I know in the past, learning from my own failures, I used to send over a questionnaire to prospects and clients and tell them to fill this out. Well, that was the shittiest thing I could have done to them, because they're like, dude, you're making me work, and I don't want to do that, right? So essentially what we've done is we've broken out into individual sections with the information that we need to know. I'm not going to belabor this, too much. I mean, the questions are here. We're going to share them. But at the end of the day, we do this in a smooth way. We don't just share this document with them. We don't talk through each point. We get an understanding. So this is kind of a touch game where they are at with their project, and we begin going through these questions where the account manager is asking them. In no way or no how should you ever do anything that bores your client. You can't bore people into working with you.
Yeah, completely conversational. This is a guide. This is also just to, kind of think about how we're creating our training programs. Like, how do we scale? Like, how do we scale account management, or how do we scale sales?
Right.
And if you don't start documenting and putting things together like this, you can't scale, or you can't onboard people and get them trained up quick. So this is like, We didn't need anything like this before because, all of our people that we were, putting in these positions were, top end sales and top end account managers, and they've been trained well, what about when we get to the point where we're hiring 15 account managers? How do we scale that? How do we make sure they know the Oyova way to do it? And that's by documenting it, by getting it on paper and refining it and having a process to refine it and to keep going through, those actions that make the process better. And I think it's key. And so I'm really proud of the team for putting this together, and it's going to help us.
And you bring up a good point, like starting somewhere, because you know what? We should have taken a snapshot of the brain dump and we probably could with the version history of how shitty it looked at first, because it was just like a mishmash of questions, what are the hex colors on your website? And there's just like all these things that were just thrown against the wall. And now it's a much smoother way to go about it. And what's interesting is through the years, these are just things that you organically learn and ask, and having it all documented in one place makes it a really powerful tool. And, one of the pillars, I was trying to think of something construction based, it's the siding for that pillar, because it's not necessarily a pillar in itself.
The erection of the pillar.
Are we still talking about marketing here? So no, I guess it's marble or sheen or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
High gloss, matte
high
finish.
Gloss. Yeah, with like a high gloss pillar over here at Oyova.
So hey, anyone listening out there, if you've got a tool that you use for your your initial sales call, let us know. I'd be super interested to hear what you guys use in terms of tools for that intro sales.
Yeah, or if you have a question, or if you have anything to refute what we're saying, and to sum up the smooth, creating a smooth sales process, just never catch your customer off guard, right? Just let them, guide them through this process, and if you can create some shock based on like positive results and everything, but just understand that you're going to separate them from their money. They need to feel as comfortable as possible and trust you every step of the way.
Yeah, spot on.
On to the next one. And the next one is even smoother onboarding. So everybody's purchased something that was a jarring process after, where the best moment was when the salesperson either shook your hand or you signed that agreement. And there's companies still that will even say that today, right? Where they say, all right, the best moment, the honeymoon is over after the sale. Well, I think that's complete bullshit. And I think that's because somebody's not setting the right expectation. And if the best moment is the time that you sign the check and fill out a signature, that you're just left with a road of disappointment. Those are companies that typically have poor reviews. So having a smooth onboarding process is inherent, and it starts with some of the usual suspects, right? So hosting a kickoff meeting and having a very thorough way to go about your kickoff meeting, where you do them in a similar framework every single time. Also, getting them into your project management system or whatever tool that you can use, so they can see the activities taking place and they understand the timelines and the deliverables and everything that's involved. That should match whatever contract, agreement, outline, or plan that they signed off on. I also recommend having them meet the team. Let them know that there are humans involved in this process. So whether that's at the kickoff meeting or some other way at the beginning of that onboarding process, I think it's really important for them to get an idea of a lot of the other players that are behind the scenes. They're essentially humans, right? And if somebody's just emailing into this box, it can get contentious on both sides. So you can create like a social accountability saying like, oh yeah, well, I know Rhonda and I don't want to let Rhonda down. That could be internal as well as external, because they realize that there's a face behind the email or the name. And then scheduling the meeting cadence, I recommend doing that also at the start, whether it's a project, a retainer, making sure that everybody understands this is when we're going to meet, this is how long the meetings are going to be, and make sure the meetings are not boring. I said it in the sales process. It should be in everything that you do. Do not bore people, because they're not going to see the value in what you do. Just get straight to the point. Don't be mean or anything, but just make sure that it's super clear and they understand both sides of the equation. So, all right, scheduling that meeting, and then just let them know that they have to show up. And the reason I say this, in the onboarding process, I've seen companies just think that, especially when it comes to marketing and sometimes on the technology dev side, that things are just going to happen and they don't need to be involved. The most successful companies, in my experience, are the ones that take high involvement, are enthusiastic with the project. So the more involved they are, the better outcomes that will be. And it takes good account management to set boundaries, right? So you don't get scope creep and things of that nature. So just make sure all those things are discussed at the forefront. And if there's any risks or anything to watch out for, hey, we're going to need this by certain timelines, or we need to watch out for this season, all that should be discussed during that onboarding process. So it's really, really smooth.
So what you're talking about is just excellent account management, right? I mean, that handoff. Yeah, of course. But that handoff,
right? All those three have to come together and then make sure that is smooth.
But you can't have weak account management. And if you do, then you're going to end up with a really grinding experience after sales. And that's why people have that experience that once sales is over, the honeymoon's over. That's because there's a lot of companies out there that have shit account managers and can't transition that project nice and smooth. And also, just to speak to one of your points, it's like everyone's looking for the gotcha, right? You've separated them from their money and they're like, it's too good to be true or whatever. You've got to, and now they're waiting for the gotcha. So if you then come back and you don't have strong account management and all of a sudden you come back with, ooh, I know we just got started, but that's going to be another $2,000. They're going to be like, what is this? How is this relationship going to work? That's the gotcha. They were looking for that, but you didn't identify that. You should have put a little bit more effort on the front end to make sure that a quick surprise doesn't happen. A surprise 8 months down the road is completely different than 8 weeks. So you shouldn't be surprised 8 weeks into a project.
No, it minimize any surprise where you're continually just educating them, building and fostering that relationship where, and I think the main thing, maybe we said it, is getting ahead. Get ahead of every single thing that you can, and you will exemplify what a professional is, especially in this industry, whether it's sales, account management, or project management. And that's what makes that onboarding process super smooth.
Yep.
And when you have a super smooth onboarding process, that's when you get into the production and delivery, right? So one of the things I like about a solid production and delivery system is a scoreboard. So whether we're working with another agency, we're working with a client, like what does that look like? That can be a dashboard. It could be in the project management system, understanding the tasks, and the separate little task list projects layout. It can be Gantt charts, for instance. Whatever it is, we need a way to establish what progress looks like, so the client can understand where we're going, right? So we just did all that smooth onboarding. Everybody's happy, backslapping, high five, smiling, winking. Now we need to continually move the project along so that 8 months later, they can understand this is where we were and this is where we're going. These are the KPIs, and whether they're milestones or, all right, the designs are done, the copy is completed, now we're moving over to development. It needs to be crystal clear of what those points are. So you're showing value of what you're delivering. And when you can deliver something, like I said earlier, ahead of time, you're going to win in a number of ways. And and the only way to deliver ahead of time is setting the proper expectations. And if you deliver things late consecutively, it's only a matter of time before you lose that client. Now, don't get me wrong. I've worked with some amazing design agencies where they're just so good at what they do and so charming they can get away with it. But they're the outlier, right? They're not the norm. So I recommend, if you can do both, do exceptional work and make sure that you deliver on time or ahead of time, and continually communicate what's down the line. One last thing to this. We touched on it earlier about a process. Everything that we're going through in the production and delivery, write processes, because that's going to be a pillar of growth that helps you scale. As Dave mentioned earlier, we're going to have 15 account managers, right? Well, the only way that we can get there is by everybody doing things the way that we want them done and the way that we've all agreed to. So either you yourself as one of the agency leaders write the process, or task your team members to, hey, write the process of what you're doing, the ones that are doing it the way you want it done, and build a document that stores all that information. And once you have that, with each process, you rinse, wash, and repeat. right? Things should be more efficient and they should be simpler. And at that rate, training is a breeze because you have a document. You can take the person that created the document. They can train that person. So now you have two people, all things being held constant, are equal to each other in the way that they perform and deliver their work. So production and delivery, scorecard, make sure that you're writing processes and continually set the expectation of what's to happen ahead.
So one of our manager of front end dev gave me a great analogy during our meeting, and Ian said that it's like being in a restaurant and the waitresses or the waiters are the account managers and the production team are the cooks. Now, I worked in a short order Italian restaurant through college, so it rang true to me so much. And people that have worked in that scenario, you always know if you're part of the wait staff, you always have problem with the cooks. If you're one of the cooks, you always have a problem with the wait staff. What makes them work is that there's an agreed protocol on how things get done. And when those two teams finally find this protocol that says, all right, look, if you want extra ranch, I need you to put it in like this. When I say the food's ready, I need you to pick it up like that. It's that agreed protocol. And now all of a sudden they're working really well together. Because, if you've ever worked, have you ever worked in a short order establishment?
No, almost opened a restaurant. Yeah, but no.
Yeah,
my wife did for years.
If you watch the movie,
we're not short order. Like, what is the definition of short order, by the way?
Like not fine dining. They're not, it's not a chef back there.
Okay, got it. She worked in like fine dining. Yeah.
Correct. And we're, like it's a college guy making your food that has no culinary experience.
Right. Yeah.
So like a diner.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd say most like Outbacks are like that as well. They don't have like some chef back there. They got a process of recipes, and it's just some guys, guys and gals cooking away.
So the place I worked at least was owned and run by an Italian family, and the two old people that started it come in every Saturday and like still made the sausage, still made the sauce, like pre-made all that key stuff for the week. And they were super old, but I mean, that's why that shit tasted so good.
It was so the food was good?
Oh yeah, it was delicious.
What did you do at the restaurant?
I was a cook.
Oh really? All right.
Yeah.
Can't take the heat.
I started out as a delivery driver and then got moved into the cook position.
How the hell did that happen? That's like too.
I was working for
the requirements low to be a cook.
Yeah,
this guy can drive. That means he can cook.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the reason why I ended up there is because I had an asshole manager. It's a funny story. The manager of this kitchen graduated from the school that I was attending at the time. And was jealous and mad at me that I was actually graduating with like top grades and actually going to go into IT, where he was, after graduated for 2 years, he's managing a kitchen.
Man, this is
so he had a vendetta against me, and he finally got fired. I forget why he got fired. I think he got too aggressive with somebody, and they finally fired him. Oh, and then everything was better. Like, God, once they got rid of that toxic person, the whole restaurant and operation worked better.
Wow. That's good.
That's just a callback to toxicity of like keeping toxic people in your organization will crush productivity.
Yeah. Interesting that, he peaked and he was just holding it out and just trying to just grind you between, sausage takeout, flipping Italian burgers. I don't know what they made there. Yeah. Was it one of those Italian places with like tons of cheese on everything?
No, I mean, it was like, pizza, calzones, lasagnas, subs. So it was like slightly elevated Papa John's.
Dude, that is terrible. And then speaking of that, go ahead. What do you got? You got something else to add to that?
No, I was just going to say it was just a family-run Italian, typical Americana Italian restaurant.
Yeah, there's a period there when I was in high school. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get out of I was doing construction in high school, which sucked. I tried to get a job at like so many restaurants, and nobody would hire me at a restaurant. it was like, dude, I even like applied at like Wendy's, like no, it just wouldn't work. I don't know. I had some quality in high school that they did not want. It's probably just because I was, yeah. What's that?
We never talked about this before because I have the same exact scenario. I applied for McDonald's, Wendy's, Dairy Queen, all of them.
Yeah,
I just assumed I wasn't cute enough to be, the front person because I could never get hired by fast food. I'm like, isn't this what you're supposed to do? So my first job was delivery driver. I love delivering pizza.
Really?
Such an easy job. Imagine if 90% of our job today was sitting in your car listening to your favorite music.
That sounds well. It sounds like the 3 months that I worked for Walmart. So yeah, I quit working for my dad's company. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go do my own thing. So I got a job at Walmart. They were opening up this Walmart there, and I lost a lot of respect for Walmart. Not that I had a whole ton of it before, but I was in high school and I would go, and the manager was like, "Hey, what should I do?" You know, like open the store. He's like, just go hang out in that corner and just whatever, sit down, just stay.
Make it look like you're working.
Yeah. I was like, all right. So I would do that, and then. While working there, there was like this culture of just like total laziness. Like who could like shut off their light if you were a cashier and not have anybody go through your line? And the manager is like, oh yeah, you can go sleep in your car. People would leave there and go to the movies right down the street while they're on the clock. And after a while, I was just, all right, this isn't working for me. Yeah. After 3 months, I worked there for 3 months, where I did get cashier of the month, by the way.
Nice. Yeah, but that's just an example of you're a go-getter. You're aspirational. You're trying to do things. And most people that work in a Walmart have like, that's where they're going. That's what do you always say about mom and pop shops? Like that's why they are where they're at.
You're there for
a reason. Yep. You're working at Walmart for a reason. If you're working at Walmart, and I'm just going to shut myself up right there, because
it's sad though. It was really sad, and I remember I was in the break room, and there was talk of how to lie on certain forms so you could get government housing for less, and how you could get on food stamps. So there was this perpetuating culture of how to cheat the system, and I was like, I don't want fucking anything to do with this. Like, this is not like, what I want to be a part of at all. Because if you're not careful, that can just creep into your world. And if you have certain moral flexibilities or values that can vacillate, especially being a high schooler, that is a super toxic environment.
I'm going to give you something right here that's going to blow your mind. And the audience, you're about to get your mind blown. The phrase, you are what you eat, I used to think my whole life that was all about like the things I put in my body through eating. I took it too literally. You are what you eat is everything you consume. If you're watching trash on YouTube 24/7, if you're watching the World Star hip hop trash, you are going to become that trash. If you're in that toxic environment, I mean, when I discovered that, I was like, I started blocking people that constantly shared trash on my feeds because I'm like, I don't want to even see it. I don't want that in my head because you are what you eat and everything you consume starts affecting you. So once I looked at that saying differently, I was like, all right, I'm not going to be consuming this trash again.
How to Build an Echo Chamber by David McGraw.
Hey, that's completely fine. as long as I'm growing with it.
No, I agree. And I think it's so, and I mean, kind of getting on a tangent here, and I'll bring it back. But yeah, like, so for instance, reality TV, all those different types of things. I mean, I think it's important what you're going to consume. Except apparently my wife's in love with this. My cousin, like everybody loves the show Alone. Have you seen this show?
No.
So if you're into reality TV, I'm not. I literally can't stand any reality TV. But it's about, they drop you off on like a remote island alone, where whoever survives, I think it's 10 people, whoever survives the longest wins this prize. I want to say it's on like the 7th or 8th
This isn't Naked and Afraid? That sounds exactly like Naked and Afraid.
This is called Alone.
Are they naked?
No, they're not naked.
Okay.
You get like a whole, like, you get, I don't know, there's a list of things that you can bring. You can't bring everything though. But
so it's like Survivor 8 point, version 8.
But yeah, you're alone, man. And some of these people, they're out there for like 9 or 10 months.
Wow. All
Yeah.
for what? Like $20,000?
Half a million, 500 grand.
Okay.
Canadian. I believe it is Canadian. So I think that's like 375 grand. I don't know. I'm pretty
So
sure.
To win that competition, you have to bring your A game, right?
And also be Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of $500,000, another pillar of growth is budgeting. Being super clear on your budgeting, whether it's your P&L or however you want to understand this. It's imperative that you know how much you can spend and what you should spend it on, right? Because if you're not willing to spend the money in hiring somebody else, that could hold you back. If you hire somebody too soon, that could be detrimental. So understanding where your budgets lie will help you invest in tons of different things, whether it's going to be equipment, marketing, my near and dear, or your team. So get super clear on what you can spend. And there's baseline numbers. In fact, Dave, that's probably an episode that we should do based on baseline numbers and spreadsheets with P&Ls and whatnot. But I think that's one of the things that holds a lot of agencies back, because it's that fear of spending something. Well, you shouldn't have a fear. There should be an allocation to what should be spent, and that spend should have an intended outcome or result, whether that's a return on investment or the ability to pull on a hire that you're going to generate 3 times the revenue of that person's salary. So get super clear on your budgeting, and that's a pillar of growth that I think in my beginning years of owning an agency was really holding me back. I had no idea, and I made some really bad choices.
The key there is just knowing your numbers so that you're not obsessed with them. If you're constantly obsessed with numbers and what your bank account total is, and you don't have a process that you can run, then all you're doing is going to worry about that. How do I pay this bill? Should I pay this bill? Like, if you don't have the control over your numbers, then you can't focus on how to build your business. And if you're trying to maximize agency growth, then you need to know that your numbers are quickly accessed, understandable, and you know what your profit margins are, and so that you can say, yeah, we can spend that. We have that in the budget. We also, based on our numbers, I built in formulas into our spreadsheets that say, here's our suggested sales budget, here's our hardware budget, here's our team building budget. We already have guidelines built in to our numbers. I don't have to guess anything. If a team member says they need a new laptop or something like that, I look at the hardware budget and see what we've got to spend for the quarter. And if you pre-establish that budget, then there's no hesitation. You have that money allocated. It's there to be spent. When you don't do that,
And another thing too is it should be spent, right? So it's, for instance, if you allocate a certain number to your marketing, don't just try not to spend it, because it's supposed to do something. So that's what those budget numbers are there for.
Right.
Ready for the next one?
I am.
Team formation, construction, building, development. Essentially, you're creating a team, right? This is one of the pillars, because if you aren't creating a team and you're a solopreneur, great, that's awesome, good for you. This podcast probably isn't for you, but you can still glean some things. This is about growing and building an agency, right? So that means an agency, not an agent, is going to have multiple people, and to have multiple people, a lot of these other pillars are in play here, right? Because some of them are processes, some of them, of course, budgeting, core values, purpose, right? But as you grow, you're going to need others. So education, right? Understanding, how you can pull in, specific team members, how you can continually educate them to grow. That can go into like lunch and learns. It could be certifications that you're paying for. Also recruiting. How are you going to pull on new team members? Referrals are always a great idea from current employees. Are you going to pay a recruiter, which can be hit or miss? I've had some bad experiences with that, although we've had some good experiences with it as well. What benefits are you going to offer? So creating a constructive benefit plan, making sure that, of course, you got the bases covered, whether it's, medical, vision, dental. Are you going to have like puppy walking? Are you going to do like a salon thing? People do gym. I think we even offer some gym money, if I'm not mistaken. Which, speaking of which, I haven't seen that on my check. But anyway, what I'm getting also at is incentive plans too. So if you can incentivize your team to move toward the goal that, of course, is their goal, whether that's monetarily or they get specific programs or whatnot, and the company's goal, which the top one is always going to be driving revenue, or should be for that matter, then you're aligning things in the right way where you're going to create smooth and seamless flow. You're not going to have the grinding that Dave was mentioning earlier. And at that point, you can get rapid growth, right? So at the end of the day, have a real deep understanding. And one of these pillars where you're continually thinking about when to hire people, how to hire people, and what you do once they're on your team.
Yeah, we've got utilization charts to guide that. I mean, again, just talking about process, documentation, and getting things down on paper that tell people how to do these things. So we know when it's time to hire for a team, and we forecast the work that's coming in. And, so isn't it just kind of wrapping it all up and saying, quit getting surprised? I mean,
yeah,
think of shit ahead of and just handle it. And yeah. Quit. I mean, if you're getting surprised, if new things are popping up and you're getting hit off guard, then you're not doing something right in your business.
You know what? It's almost like, how do you remove the formula is like, how do you remove as much spontaneity as possible, but continually foster the novelty?
Think about like football and coaching, right? When Bill Belichick gets into a 3rd and 17, does he freak out? Or does he just go to that sheet of paper that says, here's the plays that we have for this scenario? Because we already know he already has an insane amount of scenarios that they practice and work on all year, even though they rarely happen. So going back to the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, when Malcolm Butler picked off Russell Wilson at the goal line at the very end of the game, they practiced that defense all year. And that was the first time of the season they executed it.
Drills. It's drills. It's the same thing in fights. Like when people are training for jiu-jitsu or anything like that, you see them doing all these things, right? All right. Well, one day that syncs up and that actually takes place,
Right. So, the shitty coaches, the coaches that are completely outmatched consistently have no clue what to do in certain situations. And they screw up, whether they call the timeout at the wrong time, they try to pass on the goal line instead of run when you have the most elite running back in the league. I mean, there's so many reasons that coaches become failures because they're just not prepared and they don't have that. So bringing it back to business, like quit being surprised by things, by expenditures, by this, be prepared, be ready. So when somebody says my laptop broke, you just go, all right, we can buy you a new one. Check the budget. Boop. All right. Boom. There it goes.
On to the next one. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think where Bill Belichick does take out some of his anger and frustrated is on those hoodies. I think he's just like, fuck it, just ripping off those sleeves and just coming out there, just sleeveless. I don't think he pays anybody else to do it too. It literally looks like he's angry and he's just like, fuck these sleeves.
I also love the way he behaves in press conferences and such. Like, it's so matter of fact. He has no emotion. He's not interested in connecting with you. He's so matter of fact. It's like we had a quarterback that threw the ball well. That defense was really good, but you got to give them credit. And moving on to the next game. Like, that is my dream approach to business. Like, I don't want the emotion in it. I want to be as robotic as possible. I want to create systems that are repeatable and that are efficient, and continually work on increasing the efficiency of those systems.
Don't you think it's a tired way to go about the press conference after the game? It's just like the questions that are continually asked. It's just, I don't know. I think it's one of the most ridiculous things about a lot of professional sports where they do the press conference after. I hate when they take what would have happened if they wouldn't have scored that touchdown, or those types of questions. I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, you can't say you can't do that. Like, what would I don't know. It's one of my pet peeves. Can't stand.
Coach. Do you think you would have won if you scored more points than them?
Yeah, like the types of questions like that, or break down what was going on in this millisecond flash of a moment where one player is handing it off to another. Like, what's going through your mind? Yeah, like grab the ball, not a whole hell of a lot, because if there's a whole hell of a lot going on, you're not going to perform at the level necessary. For instance, in golf, if you're thinking about like your swing while you're swinging, like in the backswing, you're probably not going to hit a good shot. Like you just need to do it. But there are continual questions to the players about like what's going on in those things. I don't know.
And that's all muscle memory. What we're talking about is muscle memory. And what we're doing here with this podcast in the Digital Mastermind Group is to trying to create business memory so that you can just react because you're empowered and you know about situations and you know about the tools so that you can just react and not, get stuck in a whirlpool that's just dragging you down. You don't know how to get out. Just create that business muscle memory for your agency so you can be truly agile.
Yeah, this is training. These are the tips, tricks, the reminders. These are the things that you should be thinking about. Even if you're an agency that's been in business for 40 years and you were able to transform from being the traditional to the more tech savvy, you're reminders of the importance of core values. You might live those every day. I think that's great. Understanding the culture and the purpose, right? All right, cool. But also having the solid value proposition and target market, understanding the importance of a smooth sales process. These are things like what's going on in those spaces, right? Your onboarding, what's going on during the onboarding phase, your production and delivery, making sure that all those things are top of mind. Budgeting. Okay, where are we at budgeting? There's, the more that you grow, the more important budgeting happens. Budgeting meetings, that's something that's, very apparent to everyone. And then, of course, the team formation, team building, recruiting, construction, whatever it is that you want to call that. All right, how do you continually foster your team? Because that is the product you're selling as a service-based company. Each one of these pillars is important, and it should be at top of mind if you're in a leadership category, and these should be things that you're focusing on, even if you're not measured by them, right? Even if you have other people measured, you need to be looking at things to understand what is the score and are we winning this game.
Right. Yeah, good summary right there.
How about a Dave by the numbers? What do we got? Do we have a by the numbers today?
We got to buy the numbers today. So everybody knows that I have been kind of on this local now kick lately, so I thought I would go with my example. 2020 for me has been about, this is my saying, and I stole it from my brother-in-law, stop talking about it, be about it. So I've been talking about this local thing here, and so what we have here is I went to the local pet store this week to get a bag of Blue Buffalo Freedom dog food. And we compared it to what we were paying at Chewy. Now, I completely know that there's discounts that you can do, and if you order so much, you get free shipping and stuff like that. But we weren't applying for that. We were just getting bags of food from Chewy. And the cost is $31.98. You see the tax is clearly there. And then shipping at $4.99. My total cost is $39.21. Meanwhile, all that money goes to the corporate Chewy.com, impacts 0 people in my community, and yes, I get a bag of dog food. Now, if I just go to the local pet store, I get that same 11-pound bag. It does have a higher base price. I do pay a little bit more tax, which goes to my local community and not outside the state, and I pay nothing for shipping, and my total cost for that 11-pound bag of dog food is actually 71 cents cheaper than if I just ordered it online. So not only am I making an impact locally, but I'm getting the same product and it's cheaper.
But so, you had to go to a store to get it, right?
That's the only inconvenience. So I had to drive to a store versus it's showing up in a box. I get that. If you're just that lazy, that you can't go to your local pet store, you don't care about local only.
Positive. The sales point is how many calories did you burn going to the store?
True, but then they'd say how much gasoline did you burn to get there, and you're destroying the environment because you just need some dog food.
That's not fun. Well, I could flip that. How much gasoline was used in the diesel delivery truck, which is not healthier for the environment, I'm sure, than your vehicle is. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a never-ending rabbit hole if you go that way. But the
what
reality,
is, okay, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
good.
What is the impact? Is it the tax? Like, what is the financial impact? Is it essentially $35 went into this local economy? That's what it is at the end of the day?
Well, I don't know what their cost is. I'm sure that bag of dog food for them was probably, I don't know, $20. And the big key here is you're not paying for shipping.
Probably $17.50 retail.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, it's a keystoning in a retail pricing model. Not important.
Yeah. So the only way that you actually get a cheaper product by shopping online for this instance is if you paid a little bit more. So if I would have added more things to my cart so that it was at least $50, then they give you free shipping. Mm-hmm. And then if I set it up on an auto ship program, I get like an additional 10% off. It then does become cheaper. But again, you're making zero local impact in your community. Those tax dollars are not doing anything in your community. So if you want parks and schools and roads and all that stuff, just do the 5-minute drive to your local pet store and make an impact.
How is there not a tax savings based on municipalities that incentivizes this? Like, let's say that you're an agency, you're in Las Vegas and whatnot, and one of the casinos wants to work with one in Manhattan. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that not become a part of the understanding for these municipalities to incentivize that? I don't know. That boggles my mind.
I don't really know what you're asking.
If you buy something that is in a specific area, why is there not a incentive, whether it's a tax write-off or something, to make sure that stays in a local economy?
Well, because you're buying a good from another state. That's why online e-commerce exploded in the early you didn't have to pay any state income tax. But then states and cities started realizing, holy shit, we're losing a boatload of sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a question on your tax return that says, how many goods did you purchase outside of your state? Everybody pretty much puts 0, but they will charge you sales tax if you put a number in there.
Really? So I don't know. I haven't done my own taxes ever. So all right, let's say that I'm buying stuff from like Seattle, right? Whatnot. That's where Amazon is. And then I put the number into my accounting. They're going to go ahead and charge me the sales tax that would have been incurred for Florida-based sales for those same products.
I believe so. And it's different state to state. But there's definitely states that have tried to go after sales tax that's going outside the state now.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean it's a part of the game. I get it. All right, that's a good by the numbers. I dig it.
Yeah. How about them topics? You got one?
Sirakis topic. We kind of talked about it today, but let's go in. Let's talk about happiness and expectations. That's today's Sirakis topic. We touched on it today. It'll be a little bit light, but the comment that I said earlier, where I was speaking with somebody that they said the moment that you sign that check is the happiest, goes into that expectations. So you know what, Dave? I don't have a Sirakis topic. We've talked about it in depth today. I'm just going to go ahead and call this, a faux pas, and this is my failure to control the broadcast in the way that I wanted.
All right,
that's my Sirakis topic.
Excellent.
Nice and short. We'll edit it out on the others. It won't make the YouTube page. But other than that, I think today was a great show talking about the growth pillars each agency should have. I would like, if we can too, to share our document. I think that would be solid too.
Absolutely.
If we could share that in the show notes. And everybody, just want to remind you of what we're doing and why we're doing this. So the Digital Mastermind is a group of digital agencies We stay in contact via Slack group. We have bi-weekly calls. Some of those have been, just instrumental for helping people get PPP funding, EIDL. Today, we're going to be talking about prospecting with Zoom. And we just continually sharing, tips, tricks, tools. There's mentorship in it. It's just naturally baked in. It's a peer group. So if you're interested in growing your agency, go ahead and visit digitalmastermind.com. Shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com. Feel free to ask anything that you want. In fact, there was an email that I didn't get a chance to read on this show that I'll go ahead and move over to next week. Forgive me, but the person's anonymous. If they want to, come out and say that they're not, I feel a little bit more social pressure. But in any event, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for listening today. Dave, always a pleasure, buddy. And everyone, take care.